ask questions. Welcome to the offshoot. I'm your host, Sean Nelson. Are you dating anyone right now and are you having issues with that? Well, today I have three young men on, and we're going to be talking about the fantasy, the romanticizing of relationships, whether it be dating or in friendships or even in marriage. It is my belief that a lot of people are with the wrong people, whether it be in marriage or in dating or sometimes just in friendships. So, to help me discuss this on this episode of The Offshoot, I have Mr. Troy Patterson. Troy, welcome to The Offshoot.
Thank you.
I have Mr. Keith Pope. Keith, welcome to The Offshoot. And finally, I have Mr. Brian Epps. Brian, welcome to The Offshoot.
Thank you.
How are you all doing today?
Wonderful.
Less to have the stress.
Yeah. An awesome weekend.
I'm very blessed and fortunate to have you all on. Um, this topic, as you know, like I said, it's about this idea of people wanting to date, wanting to get married, wanting to have relationships, but yet it seems like more and more people are falling into this idea of what they see on these TV shows like Pop the Balloon or some kind of reality dating show. And they come up with these phrases like love language. So I'm not quite sure what it all means. And it really makes me wonder about where is this coming from? What is it really all about? And what is this challenge when it comes to dating? So let me ask you all this first question. And Troy, I give you the first go at this. Is there an overemphasis of romantic love in our culture?
I think we all want a genuine connection, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think that there is this. Someone sent me a clip of this TV show, Love on the Spectrum, and it was these two autistic individuals who are having their first kiss, and the reaction of them. And I'll be honest, my heart actually swelled over because their reaction, because it was their first kiss for both of them, and
Mm,
they the guy almost his knees almost gave out.
Wow.
mm,
And so for me, it's like it's been so long since anyone has made my knees give out, or even that butterfly that and I thank you for, by the way, saying young, because I'm so far from that. But it's that but I do think that there is this belief that somehow being with the right person is going to complete you.
and it never does. Or we are learning that it really doesn't. So, Keith, why don't you jump in here and add something to that?
Well, I mean, I think about the question, the right person, and I often wonder, how do we know who the right person is? I've been in a relationship with my husband for 28 years, and did I know he was the right person when I started dating him or when we decided to get married? I have to be honest and say I don't know that I knew that he was the right person, but I was willing to put my big toe in the water and to figure it out, work it out, and look where we are today, 28 years later. So that's my question. Do we really know who the right person is?
Well, let me ask
Or,
you
or,
this.
or, or is it all about putting in the time and the effort and the work and the
Yeah,
Growing together.
patience and growing pains and all that stuff
yeah,
uh, that helps you to realize what does the right person really mean, right?
yeah. And in full disclosure, I've known Keith and his partner before they started dating, if you will. And so just so y'all know. And so Keith, I don't recall a fantasy or romanticizing of anything in the beginning of your intense relationship. So to your point, uh, that wasn't there, or was it there and we just didn't see it?
I don't think it was there. I think when we both got together, we were good friends. I was in a relationship with a woman at the time and had just had my first kid. So we were just friends, and he was the first person to expose me to what a real like gay relationship was like because he was in a relationship with longtime person at that time, and we became friends and had a lot of things in common. At the time, our marriage was kind of falling apart, so just got to know each other, became really good friends, and then that turned into 28 years later,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, I don't think all of that was involved in that. It was
Mhm.
again, like I said, putting my big toe in the water and seeing where it would take us.
Okay. So, Brian, what about you? Do you think that there's an overemphasis of romantic love in our culture?
Yeah, I had to look and see like what does it actually mean to be romantic. I would have definitely described myself as a romantic and maybe being a hopeless romantic for most of my life, and maybe less so now. Try to be more practical.
Mhm.
But when I looked at the definition, it just means like an expression of love, right?
Right.
I think the problem comes in when, like in our society, that we're told to express love through an individualist lens, and also through a commercial lens, which means we have to buy people things, or we have to spend all of our time with them, or we have to kind of give things that are material, like whatever that might mean. And I think a lot of folks get caught up in that. Um, I don't know if we're uh, kind of too far away from an expression of love as a society. I feel like we should probably be giving more love and more of a concentrated effort and intention around love. But I think we
Okay.
have to redefine how we express it. First, like love of self, um, like deeper love of self, and then love of others, and how to express that. I feel like right now, maybe because we don't have enough love of self and
Mm.
love of community, we're expressing our romantic love in ways that are not healthy.
There's so much to impact there, and I want to dive into a lot of that. But Troy, I see you want to say something.
No, no, I completely agree about the love of self first, because I don't to something Keith said of growing into something or the growth of it. It's for me that I've made choices um, previously based on quote unquote a desire to be in a relationship.
Hmm.
Didn't necessarily, and I don't think in my head, I thought I was ready, but I wasn't. I was not ready, and I don't think I had quote unquote the love of self that was needed to actually make me a um, fully contributing member of that relationship.
So, what is that? So, in full disclosure, again, I've gone through the process of therapy to get to this place where I consider myself who really enjoys me. I love me. I'm happy just with me, and but I didn't have that before, and I think Keith can attest to that. Uh,
Mhm.
but now that I'm here and I'm out there and trying to get to know people, if you will, uh, it is looking for that compatibility, if you will. But not everyone is in the same stage, if you will. So when it comes to one loving oneself, self-love, how do you identify that in another person? And how do you know if that person has done the work on themselves? And how do you know that they are, began what Brian said, was the commercialization, if you will, of relationships or in dating? Keith, you want to start with that? Or Brian, you want to go to anyone can jump in.
I'll let Brian go. I was gonna have to.
I remember a, a breakup with a former ex, and it was like I was very intensely in love, or what I would call in love with this person, um, with a lot of warning flags, warning signs, red flags, very early, right?
Mm.
Um, and one of my friends after the breakup was saying, "Well, did you ever ask about his politics?" Right? Like, did you ever ask about, and I think what he was trying to get to is like, did you ask about his soul or what his values were, right? Like, what were you actually in love with, right?
Mm. Yeah.
And I think that's just part of it, right? I think um, he was entertaining and he looked good, right? And so it felt good. And so then I could express this ideal of love. But to know somebody's self, like what you're asking, Sean, is so much more than that. It's so much more than being entertained. It's so much more than how they might look or how they might make you feel. Like you really have to try to get it to an essence of who they are. And I think that requires, I mean, it's people are always evolving and changing, but I think
Mhm.
at minimum it requires that you experience them on at least a few different levels, right? Like how are they around you? How are they around other people? How do they show up for the world? How are they in different seasons of their lives, right? Like if something goes wrong, what happens, right? If something goes wrong with somebody else who they supposedly care about, how do they respond? So to kind of see them in different seasons, different interactions, different
Aspects.
settings to kind of get a sense of who they are before you can actually fully show, before they can fully show their expression of love and before you can fully express how you love them, right? Because you have to also, to love somebody means you have to also love kind of their difficulties, their hardships, the things that are not so good about them. So you kind of have to see them in variety and know them well.
Yes. So how did we get to this point then? Do you think that capitalism has played a role in terms of where we are today, in terms of how people see dating and relationships? You mentioned commercialization, if you will, and people feeling they have to buy this or they have to do this together or spend 24 hours a day together, just to show that, okay, this person is into me, if you will. Um, so is our pop culture society at fault?
I, I'm going to jump in here. I think we're all ruined by Cliff and Claire Huxtable. This idea of the power couple who are, they are doing really well, and we all wanted to be part of a power couple at some point or another. And so that person, you start to then, and I'm guilty of this. I used to tell one of my friends, "Oh, you need to start dating progressively. You can't go backwards."
Yeah.
So there is this, and I'll admit that I'm not the person to be taking advice and relationship advice from, but I would say that we are. I think the images that, not necessarily commercialization as much as the images that have been put in front of us about what a couple is supposed to be.
Hmm. Heath, what about you? Because from the outside, like I said, I've known you for quite a long time, and you do have a an ideal life, if you will,
Hmm.
that some folks probably aspire to.
Right.
But I wouldn't say that it's, you know, the Huxtables, because there have been some ups and downs, right?
Oh yeah, many, many. But that has helped us to be where we are today, and so and we're in a very healthy place. So I love those ups and downs that we've experienced. I think capitalism. Hmm, you know, part of one of the love languages. There's this thing called the five love languages, and one of those things has to do with showing a person. How much you care for them by presenting them with gifts and things like that.
Hmm.
So I think that that's part of where capitalism comes into relationships.
Okay.
Is that a bad thing? I don't necessarily think that it is because um, I love it when my husband comes home and he has flowers, just because. Um, so yeah, something as simple as that is part of capitalism. But it puts my heart in a good space, and it takes me to a good place with him at that point in time. So, is it a bad thing? No, but can it be a bad thing? Yes, because I think sometimes we as human beings take things a little too far, and we think that that is the only way that we can have a happy, healthy relationship with someone is to buy them things, to give them things, instead of really opening up and figuring out ways to give of yourself,
Mhm.
um, and to be satisfied with that, and not feeling like you always have to buy somebody something, and it's like you're buying happiness, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that that's where it goes wrong.
Yeah. Brian, you want to add to that?
I keep going on mute. Sean knows I have a soundtrack in the back, aka a jingle. But you mentioned Pop the Balloon, and like I actually find it very entertaining, but it's also really sad, right? It's like everybody who goes on the show wants a formula of something, and I think it goes beyond the show, like
Mhm.
dating environment, like to find a match means that they are a certain prescription, right? They are a certain height, certain tone in their voice,
Mhm.
certain level of masculinity or femininity. They not only make a certain amount of money, but they're willing to spend a certain amount of money on you.
Mhm.
Um, you know, there's always like some like must love God, but what does that mean, right? Like,
Yeah.
and they have to dress a certain way, be a certain height. So there's this formula of what it means to be a perfect date, which I think, butt has to be a certain size, dick has to be a certain size, right? All of these things, that's not an expression of humanity, right? And all of its
Yeah.
diversity, and definitely not the way everybody looks. So I think that's the problem with capitalism, is that it's given us this false brand of what a date is supposed to be, or what a perfect partner is supposed to be, versus us trying to get to know each other for who we are as individuals and our unique gifts.
Yeah.
It's the Bachelorette, Bachelor and Bachelorette. I mean, if you even look at some of the TV shows about marriage, it is that commercialization, and it's like you want to find a millionaire, or you want to be married to a millionaire, or the Real Housewives. Um, at the same time that they're talking about what who can marry, or who
Mhm.
really can marry, they're at the same time bastardizing the what was supposed to be a blessed and blessed covenant.
Yeah. But Troy, you mentioned the Huxtables, and I would take it a step further and talk about the Obamas because I clearly remember that when Obama was running for office, actually before he was running for president, when he was running for a senator for the state of Illinois, there was that's when this phrase, if I recall, Black excellence started to take on. And all of a sudden, in our culture, as Black people, we were looking for Black excellence, in our partners. But no one could ever define what Black excellence really was. Okay, but back to your point, a man and a woman, or a couple, gay, straight, whatever, everyone making six figures, they're living in a 5,000 square foot home in the suburbs of DC or Atlanta or Chicago. And so is that Black excellence? Is that the capitalism part of romanticism when it comes to relationships? But I also wonder how much of that we see is really about compatibility. Is it more of some kind of other kind of arrangement? And then I still wonder, considering that the divorce rate is still high, um, were those people actually with the right person or not? And they were just, like to Keith's point earlier, there wasn't that kind of fantasy around dating in the beginning of his relationship. Um, but it came, I guess, at a later point. But where we are today, it seems like everyone they want to go to Ruth Chris for the first date. Okay. I'm not spending money on you like that, whether I have it or not.
All right, so I have to tell this story. I was asked out on a date by younger kid, and I was like, okay, because that's the only people who ask me out anymore. And apparently, the thing now, there's this thing of them getting older men to take them out to these nice restaurants, and I was like, okay, I'll I figured I was going to be paying. Forgive my French. This bitch ordered a $72 steak. I was like, exactly, Keith. I was like, okay, all right. So, but again, it's sort of this mindset of get the most that you can out of something. So
Mhm.
I've given up on the whole idea of dating these days.
But
Yeah,
is
I
it
think it's
part of the
I think
fantasy
I
though?
think it's important to make sure that when you're in the dating realm that you know what you're getting yourself into. And but it's also important to communicate clearly and to set the standards and make sure that people know that, hey, that's not what I'm into. If you want to go out on a date, then talk about the the rules and the guidelines around what this date is going to be. Are we going Dutch? Or are you paying or am I paying? I mean, and I think it's fair to ask those questions, even on a first date. I think it's fair because then all the expectations are out on the table, and there's no misunderstanding when it comes time for paying the bill. So, Troy, if I were you and I was on that date and someone ordered a $72 steak, no, I would not have paid that bill.
But
Like
it's funny. Do you feel? I'll say it's a generational thing. I don't know that necessarily the guys my age actually ever really dated, because everything was so in the closet for so long that when we did finally, the younger generation they date a little bit more. But I don't know that I ever really ever dated, because it all went straight to relationships at some point.
Okay.
And of course, when they get older and they want to date, then they fall into this trap of the fantasy or the romanticizing of dating.
Yes.
Interesting.
Or is it when we are older gentlemen like myself and Troy, do we feel that that's the only way that we can get a date is if we put out, and when I say put out in the sense that we pay for that first, second, third date. You know what I mean? Like seriously, like
I'll
that's
take
how some
both.
of us are, right?
I'll take both the definitions.
Okay, we are on YouTube, by the way, and Spotify, so keep this tame, if you will. But Keith, you said something that I think actually is what's missing, not just with maybe I don't know, young, old, I don't know, but you mentioned communication,
Yep.
and I think that that's part of the problem right now is that people assume that we're watching the same programs or we understand what's going on culturally, or we're on social media and we are getting the same info, and we're not. It's fragmented, and so when you meet someone or go with someone, I guess they're assuming this or assuming that versus actually communicating, like you said, Keith, that okay, we're going to this particular restaurant. Okay, I'm not paying for this, or it's Dutch, etc. So I think that's kind of all part of the problem is the communication part. But I still think that with that, people come in with these preconceived notions about dating, and and to Troy's point, I think once they assess who you are, okay, they say, okay, he can afford this. Maybe I can't afford it. Maybe I want to budget this month, and so I don't know. So, with Brian, I haven't heard from you in a minute.
Yeah, I was thinking back to a conversation I was having with a date actually about some of this, and that with gay or queer men specifically, right? Like, I think it's strange that we still have like a heteronormative idea about who's going to pay, right? This responsibility in general, like who takes responsibility in general on a date or in a relationship. Like, aren't we all men, or like how do we define that, right? Like coming into a date, that one person has to pay versus the other, or I'm gonna get all want to get out of somebody else. I remember dating somebody else, and they told me about a conversation they had with their friend group, and they said like they would never date a guy who wore sandals because that if something happened, he wouldn't be able to run and protect him. And I'm like, aren't you a man too? Aren't all of you and your friends are having this group conversation? Aren't y'all all men too? Like, somebody else got to run to protect y'all, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just strange to me that we're kind of caught up in this binary.
Well, you touch on something that I think that's also part of this fantasy, this myth about dating, and that is when you do go on a date with someone, that person that you want to date with goes back and tell their friends about the date, and then they all become part of the scenario, if you will. And I've never understood why bring your friends into the conversation, getting their advice about us getting to know each other. Okay. Do you agree that when you meet someone and try to get to know someone and they start talking about their friends and what their friends that my friend said this, my friend said that, okay. Do you think that's part of the problem? Is that part of that fantasy of Sex in the City when the girls got together and talked about who they went on a date with. Um, Anyone can jump in and answer that.
Yeah, I think folks, and I think social media might have made this even worse, is that people want like a date that's almost like a commodity, like a prize, right? And
Mm,
so, folks want like early approval on who they're dating. They want to be seen like like you mentioned, the power couple earlier. Like if they're going to choose somebody or be chosen by somebody, they wanted somebody who's seen as like a 10 or who's high in demand or who is like preferred, not just for them, but for like a lot of people.
high profile connections,
Mhm.
what have you.
I think social media has moved us in a direction of trying to present our love as with our spouses and our partners as glamorous and always fun and amazing, and that is just not the truth. And I think that because of the beautiful moments that we post on Facebook and Instagram and all these other places, that's all that people see. And they want the same thing, not really realizing that those photos that you saw was just in that moment in that time.
Mhm.
You have no idea what happened right before that those photos were taken. You know how when we're in relationships and we have an argument before we walk in the door of a party and we get ourselves together and we know how to present ourselves,
Yeah.
but then right after that party is over, don't touch me, don't talk to me. I don't. Nope, we're still here, right? And so I think that that's what social media kind of sort of has done for us, where we post these photos and we post these moments in our lives that are amazing, with persons want to live that.
Yeah.
They want that dream, not
Curated life.
understanding all the things that has come along with that.
Yeah. And I don't want to say that there are not great relationships out there, especially among the Black community, the gay community, etc. But I go back to the Obamas, and people tend to love whenever they see photographs of the Obamas together. And like to your point, Keith, we don't know what happened minutes before that photograph was taken. And I think about the movie Sinners, and I hate to spoil this for anyone who hasn't seen the movie, but the couple that's getting all the rage out of the movie Sinners is the couple between Smoke and Annie. Okay, she's a big, dark-skinned black woman. Her partner is played by Michael B. Jordan. And that couple is the one that I've noticed that the black community, including the gay community, has been drawn to. And I wonder again, is that part of that socialization, conforming people's thinking to that fantasy of dating and or what it could be like? And again, but it was just a movie. And not to say that we don't see couples like that, but doesn't that add to the problem?
I haven't seen the movie because I can't really I can't speak on it. I have no
Right,
idea.
go see it soon.
Oh, you really do have to see it.
Okay.
I would say that yes, but it does speak to certain archetypes that we have because the other brother chose the light-skinned woman, who was played by a white woman. So it's that this either or that we seem to have are and we have so much trauma around skin color
Mhm.
in our community that to Ryan's point earlier, that on this, what is it, the show, Pop the Balloon,
Mhm.
you see people dismissing someone simply because of their skin color.
Yes. Yeah, which is quite disturbing. I thought we had gotten past that, but it seems like, and I've seen it before, and I don't watch the show, but I've only gotten clips that came to my feed on Instagram, like, why am I getting this? And I've literally uh, watched a clip where the individual said, oh, I don't date someone with light skin, or I don't date someone with dark skin. I'm like, really? We are still at this place. But needless to say, again, that sounds like, again, social media, again, feeding into people what how one's supposed to react when it comes to dating. Uh, Problematic. Okay. Anyway, um, So let's talk about compatibility. How do you know when someone's compatible with you? Keith, so you're the one that's been, I mean, we've all been in relationships, but Keith, you've been in the longest relationship amongst the four of us. So how do you know when that person is compatible? And should people start looking at compatibility from the very first date, or should they wait a few weeks or months into dating before thinking about compatibility?
Well, I mean, I think compatibility it kind of comes with knowing what you want and knowing what's important to you, knowing your value, knowing your worth, understanding that no matter what relationship you are in, whether it's romantic or not, that you matter. I think it all starts with those things, how you look at yourself. We talked about self-love, self-love within yourself. Compatibility, I think, comes with communicating clearly, um, making sure that your partner hears you, responds to you, and shows you in whatever way that again you matter and that you're important. If you're in any situation and you realize that you are being discounted, then you're not compatible to that person.
Yeah.
You don't matter. You're not important. So I think that those are the things that you need to look at. But I think that it starts with yourself. Like you have to be comfortable in your own skin and be aware of those things that are important to you, those things
Mhm.
that are of value of yourself, and then start exploring with this other person to find out where they are, where they stand, but be very observant about how they treat you, how they talk to you, how they present you in public. Like there's so many things that comes along with comparability, but I think it first begins with yourself, knowing your self
Yeah.
worth, your value.
Well, I want to add to that, and I want Brandon to answer this question, but doesn't that include the compatibility extending to one's family? Brian, can you respond to that? Because
I've definitely thought a lot about that. Like, um, you know, is the way someone's raised, or their family, is that part of the mix? I mean, I think ultimately it's, maybe more so about the values that they have and kind of where they want to go than
Mhm.
maybe what they've experienced when they were younger. I agree with Keith, like how they treat you, how they show up. Are they kind? Are they respectful? Is definitely a part of it. Their values. Are you able to communicate effectively? Um, I think the self-love pieces are like, are you able to maintain a container for yourself and a container for them? Like, do you have capacity for both? And the things that y'all share, in addition to like mutual interests and maybe even shared goals that you have. So definitely agree that Keith, there's like a lot that might go into it. Um, yeah.
Mm. What about you, Troy?
Well, I think to Brian's point, how you're brought up. My parents have been married for 60 some years. Um, my ex, before she died, his mom had had four husbands. And his father had had three wives. And all he ever saw was people giving up.
Mm.
For me, and this is actually for me because I've gotten to the point where if our medications don't clash, then we're good. But 'cause everybody has some degree of crazy. But I would say that for some people, they understand that it takes work to keep a relationship going. Other people just this is something, and as Maya Angelou said, he said to me in our first conversation, "I'm in this as long as it's good," and uh, and that is how some people think.
Mm. There's
So
also,
what did that mean? What did that mean? As long as it's good?
As long as things were great, he was there. But then as soon as things started, things weren't great for him, then because for me it was like I was dealing with I actually got to the point where I could tell when he had gone off his medications. And so that's that was something I was always dealing with. But I came from a background where you work, you don't just give up on a relationship.
Yeah.
So again, to your point about how you're brought up is very different. Is very important.
So, I mean, again, I know this is not something that's exclusive to the Black community or the gay community, but do you think that it is more prevalent in those two communities? Anyone?
Is what more prevalent?
Giving up on relationships.
I don't
Yeah,
think it's more prevalent.
yeah. I don't know how you can. How do you determine that?
Yeah, how do you quantify that? Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
yeah, yeah.
know. Yeah,
I feel like maybe, I hate to pathologize, Black folks, right? But I feel like maybe what we're up against in terms of society has made it difficult for us to maintain relationship, right? Even just the money factor, right? If you look at the kind of the marriage statistics and the number of folks who get married, and
mm,
uh, like as it stands right now in our society, like marriage is also a financial institution, right?
yeah,
So the attractiveness of even being in a long-term relationship might not be there if folks are not making money or don't have assets. Right. So I feel like there's so many things in society that might be up against Black folks that don't allow for us to have conventional relationships, even though we know that we're constantly in relationship with one another. Right.
yeah.
I know we all grew up with the phrase, well, not grew up, it's newer for some of us, um, baby mama and baby daddy. Um, that discounts the relationship that you guys had because you may have is his only relationship with me is that he's my baby's daddy.
Mhm.
No, that's not. You had a relationship together, or at least you had enough of a relationship that you produced a baby.
Right.
There's another thing that's been talked about quite a bit lately when it comes to relationships and dating, what have you, and that's the word obsession. One young lady mentioned, I think it was to Charles Blow, that she wants her guy to be obsessed with her. Okay, what are your thoughts on that? Is obsession a healthy thing?
Well, sounds very dangerous to me. Extremely dangerous because when it goes in the wrong direction, it can be very volatile and emotional, and yeah, I don't think that's healthy at all.
Yeah. Brian and Troy.
I commented on that post. I said maybe she means devotion. And I can get with that. Like
And I could go with devotion.
I appreciate devotion. I consider
Yeah,
myself to be a loyal person.
yeah.
And I'm just hoping that maybe that's what she means, that she wants
Okay.
somebody who's devoted to making things work out versus obsession. Because I agree with Keith, like that's crazy.
Yeah. I think devotion is the right word and loyalty is the right word.
Yeah.
I might disappear on you for 3 or 4 days, just
Not
working.
Troy.
Like it's like I don't call me. My friends know. Don't call me if I'm in this period.
I do think people use the wrong adjectives a lot of times. And as a journalist, one who really loves to write, I don't want to say I'm a wordsmith, but I pay attention to words. And when I hear things like that, I wonder too about, okay, do they really understand and comprehend the definition, the meaning of that particular word? But again, I think because again, I keep going back to social media and society and capitalism, but I think they put this stuff on people, if you will. But let's turn to love language because I still don't quite know what that is. I still don't understand it. Can each of you give me your definition of this phrase that people use quite often, love language?
Oh, I think it's sort of like a starting point to how you um, manage, interact, work your way through a relationship with someone with a sense of goodwill, generosity, that sort of thing. It's finding out ways to communicate with this other person that actually works for them, um, in a positive manner.
Mhm. Okay. Troy, Brian.
I think it breaks down to expression, how you express love, but also uh, on the other side, how you receive love. For me, I'm not big on gifts or gift giving, but I am big on acts of kindness. I can't remember but it's I'm going to cook dinner. I'm going
Yeah.
to run you a bath, put some rose petals in it, and bring you chocolates and things like that. So it's
That
so
sounds
it's
very romantic.
yeah, well, a lot of good it does me. But that again, that's how I express. But it's how I take love is really touch. So,
Yeah. What
and
about you, Brian? What's your definition?
Yeah, I agree with that. Like the expression of love and also how we receive it is to me what love language is about. And I think it's important because if you don't understand your own kind of language or the language of somebody that you're dating of, you might kind of be missing out on some essential communication, right? You can be expressing yourself in one way that doesn't land for somebody that you're trying to invest in, and they won't even see your effort or see who you are.
Yeah.
So it's kind of good to understand what matters to you and what matters to the other person so that you can effectively communicate your expression of love and so that it's felt.
Okay, so that takes me to this next question then. So when it comes to love language, uh, is one able to extend love language to more than one individual? And with that being said, do you believe that everyone has a, meaning one, soulmate?
You talking about poly, huh?
No, I'm not actually.
Not okay.
No, no. But I mean, just
One partner for life is what you're saying.
yeah. I mean, because if you're dating someone and you engage in love language, okay, and that lasts for say 3 years, and then you take a break, and then you meet someone else, and then I guess you engage in love language again, right? Okay,
Mhm.
with the idea of, okay, this is dating and relationship building and what have you. But with that, does that mean that you can have more than one soulmate, in the, a life partner? So, of course, sometimes a partner passes away, or what might one we might think that the first marriage was their sole partner, or the sole partner for life, but it wasn't, and then later on, it's okay, maybe this is my soulmate. So, um, I'm not saying that the two are mutually exclusive, but um, but
it,
does love language apply to the one person you're dating? Or can it be applied to someone else when you moved on to someone else and start dating that person? And what does that say about having a soulmate? That does it
that
mean that you can have more than one soulmate?
that presupposes the idea of a soulmate. That there is only one person, and I think that there is a great capacity for love within the human being and the human soul, and that each person can bring something that you didn't know
Mhm.
to it. And I'm sure we've all gone through um, thinking this person was the end all and be all, but then when it ends, it's I would hate to, as I think there was a quote in we only get two great loves in our lives. I don't necessarily believe that.
You think there could be more than two?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Anyone else want to add to that?
I don't know that I fully understand what a soulmate is. I was having this conversation with some friends the other night, and I still don't know that I fully understand that, what a soulmate is. Um, but I do believe that there is someone out there for everyone, and we have to take our time and you know do some dating, and to get some experience and to see what's out there for us. And I have a daughter. You guys don't know this. I have a daughter, and she's been going through a lot of dating, and she's now engaged. And during her dating stage, I used to always tell her, you know, you have to give it a try. Every single guy that you go out with is not the right guy for you. But you have to go through the bad in order to know what you don't want so that you know what you do want, right? So yeah, I don't know about the soulmate thing. Unless one of you guys can clearly explain to me what it is. Like I don't know that I understand it.
I don't, Brian or Troy.
This might be a little trippy or abstract, but like I was I lived in Richmond for a few years before moving to the DMV, and I would walk the river every day, and I would see like the birds swoop down into the river and eat fish.
Ooh.
And I was thinking, yeah, it's super cool to watch, but it's also like we live on a planet that literally eats itself. Like we eat each other, like we're violent to each other. It can be
Hmm.
like a really crazy world, right? So to be able to find and choose love on this planet is like a radical choice, isn't it? Like on a
Mm,
planet that is made
Hmm.
to eat itself. And so I think that's maybe where the idea of like the hope of a soulmate comes from, to like actually choose someone to walk through life and to guard yourself around
yeah.
from like the
Okay.
harms.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, but I think you can do that with multiple people, with community, like with multiple different mates. And I mean, that's the most beautiful thing, right? To like say like I'm in this world that's nuts and crazy and violent, but I'm also creating another alternative, with one person, with 20 people, with whatever.
Thank you for saying that because I wanted to ask this question as well. Given the structure of society when it comes to dating relationships uh, over the last 2,000 years, is it time to look at something different? Is it time to say that, okay, uh, this structure may not be for me, or maybe it is for me? Okay. So I guess what I'm trying to ask is this. Um, I think, Brian, you mentioned, or somebody mentioned the heteronormative way of dating earlier. Okay. Uh, is that passe, or should we look at our own way of dating? Or should we just like, I don't want to say throw the bathwater out with the baby, but should we be looking at or creating our own process, if you will?
I think something Brian said really struck me, a radical choice of, and to your point about what used to be, is there value in making a radical choice of being with someone and building a life with them? And that is, you are building it as equals, and you're not settling because someone has told you you have to be in a relationship. That you are making that radical choice to create a life with someone. And that's where I would like to be. Is, I don't necessarily rule out I'll, if I ever get in another relationship, but I am not necessarily going to make a choice about someone just for the sake of bringing someone into my life. It has to be someone who, um, oh God, I was about to quote Tracy Ellis Ross. It's gonna somebody who has to bring value to my existence.
Yeah.
But I also don't know that I'm bringing value to someone else's existence yet.
And I think that's the question that someone who is self-aware asks themselves when they're dating someone. What can I bring to add value to that other person's life? At least I try to ask that question myself. Okay. And I don't think a lot of folks do that. Or they may subconsciously do it in other ways in terms of how they showcase their love language, if you will. Okay. But Keith, I mean, what about you? So are we dating the way we date? Is that old? I mean, is it passe or is um again, well, let me just scratch that. And so like I said, you've been with Tim for 28 years, I think, right? Something like that.
Yes.
Um, and um, and like I said, I've known both of you guys for about 30 years. Okay.
Mhm.
And um, but you guys do have um a great relationship. Yeah, I know there's been ups and downs because I was there, but
Mhm.
needless to say, uh I don't think that you guys what you accomplished, what you did was so much heteronormative, if you will. I think you guys kind of carved your own paths.
Right. Yes. So we did. I'm in a interracial relationship. My husband's white, and it's very interesting because we always make fun that whenever he comes to my family, he's the only white person. Whenever I go to his family, he's the only black person. So we always make fun of that. And prior to me getting with my husband, I was married and I have two children. So that only added to that dynamic. And I do recall uh, there were times when my kids were growing up and we would go spend the holidays with Tim's family. I remember a few times when my kids would say to me, "Dad, do we have to do this?" Okay. And I explained to them yes, and I gave them the reasons why. So yes, that was very different. That was out of the norm. For myself and Tim, we never thought that it was out of the norm. We just knew that we were in a relationship, and this is how we wanted to, um, direct our relationship and our family. And it worked for us. It doesn't work for everyone. The pressures are there. Um, you know, I don't look at him as a white man. He doesn't look at me as a black man. We look at each other as we're husband and husband, and we love each other. So we're going to do those things to take care of one another. Yes, every day that I look at him, I do know that he is a white man. But what I'm simply saying to him is that he's not a white man to me. He's my husband. He's the person that I've chose to share my life with and to live my life with and to raise my children with and that sort of thing. And it has worked for us. There have been some struggles around it, but you know what? Every relationship has struggles around it. Um, I think today our society has shifted in such a manner that dating is so different. Everything is so fluid right now, and everybody is trying everything and dipping into this and dipping into that. And I'm not saying I'm totally against it. You know what? When I was younger, I wish I was 30 years old today and I could dip and dab like the kids are dipping and dabbing today. But I'm not, so I won't. Um, but um, but I do appreciate it. I appreciate the idea that folks are no longer in a box when it comes to dating, that folks are no longer following those guidelines that, oh, because you're a Jewish person, you must date another Jewish person.
Mhm.
When I first moved here to Vancouver, I was blown away when we went out to a pub and we sat at this family style table, and there was this Scottish guy with this woman from another country, from Japan or someplace like that, and just the idea of being in a city where everybody is from everywhere, and so you see so many different types of relationships. And it's been very rewarding. So uh, I think I think it's great that people are doing dating differently today, and I applaud them. And I think it's important for people to find their own path,
Mhm.
and if it works for them, hurrah!
But do you think that that success is due to the removal of the romanticization of the relationship?
No, because I don't think you need the romance to have a successful relationship. I think you just need to make sure that you connect with one another, and you see each other and you take care of each other, and you just do those things to to nurture your relationship. And
Mhm.
it's not always about romance,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and I tend to concur. So finally, gentlemen, again, thank you all for joining me on this episode of the Offshoot. And for my viewers, please do not forget to subscribe and like and follow this channel. You can catch me on YouTube and other platforms like Spotify, Amazon, Apple. I would love to have your support. So final question to everyone. Okay, relationships, dating, romanticizing it. Okay, where do we go next? What, in your opinion, what's next? So how do we start dating and build relationships, um, but not fall into this trap of fantasy or this myth about dating or what have you?
Yeah.
Anyone?
If I could answer that, I would be on the Oprah's couch somewhere. Uh, I think that is the quintessential question. I've actually sort of I found that I'm so bad at dating that I've leaned into my community and to my friends. So to my point earlier, when I feel like I'm bringing something to the table that makes sense, I'll be on the lookout.
Hmm. Yes, Brian, Keith, any final words on that?
I would say just to be open. Be open. Don't put yourself in a box. Um, and um, and at the point where you see the red flags, run.
And Brian, you had the
Yeah.
last word.
I mean, Troy, I feel like that was going to be my answer. Like, if I think back to when I first started dating, it was all based on what I saw from my family or what I saw in movies. And I wish that I would have maybe read more or talked to friend groups more, talked to family about it more.
Mhm.
Um, so I feel like maybe that's an opportunity for us as a community to just be in community, and to kind of like get shared language around what we're trying to do in terms of dating, like do more of this, right? This conversation that you're hosting, Sean, to kind of get us on the same page about what we should be looking forward to and what our expectations should be.
Yes, and I want to add this, and I wish I had done this earlier. Um, my mother and we have these conversations. We talk about dating. Uh, we- I tell her about this or that, or she'll tell me about this or that. And she's a very beautiful woman. And so men have always kind of been after her, if you will. But she's at a point where she'll date, but she's in no hurry because she's good with where she is. And of course, I'm not quite where she is. But what I've noticed is that the way I've been dating was somewhat similar to how she dated over the years, if you will. And so now when I talk about whom I'm going out with, et cetera, so we chat and we talk, if you will. I wish I had that in my 20s. Okay.
Mhm.
But I have it now and it's wonderful. So again, gentlemen, thank you all for joining me on this episode of the podcast. Let's do this again. And to my listeners again, please do not forget to like and subscribe to this channel, The Offshoot. I don't profess to have the answers. I'm just here to ask questions.